Hello gamers, today is Sunday, April 4th, 2021. It's actually Easter Sunday, and here we are in Wales, still in lockdown from the pandemic. And today we will be beginning the Battle of Quatre from the Waterloo campaign. This is June 16th, 1815, 2 days before Waterloo itself, where we have a clash between the French forces led by Marshal Michel Ney, and we have against the Anglo-Allied forces commanded by His Grace the Duke of Wellington, and also the Prince of Orange. And we're using the Volley and Bayonet rules. And I've played this battle, of course, recently, only a few months ago, using Volley and Bayonet. But in that I was using 6mm figures. And in this battle here, we're using 20mm figures. Up front, I will say that this, as the others in this series, this is merely my Wargame journal. I'm not making this for the sake of a YouTube channel or any other purpose. It's just me recording, essentially me playing a solo Wargame. So therefore, it is important that I am not using this medium to teach people how to play Volley and Bayonet, although I'm sure you will pick up a lot of things. If you watch this video, at least you'll be able to see what a battle in Volley and Bayonet looks like. The other thing I wanted to say up front too is that the figures that I'm using today are from my collection of Napoleonic 20mm figures, and I'm using what I have available. So therefore, I am not, for example, using figures that I have bought and painted in order to play the Battle of Quatre, or even in order to fight the 100 Days campaign. I'm using what I have available, and so therefore, although many of the figures will have appropriate uniforms, some of them might have slightly or seriously inappropriate uniforms, but by and large, we will see that the French are the soldiers in blue, and the British are going to be the redcoats, and then we've got some Dutch and Belgians. Well, we certainly got Dutch and Belgians, I believe, in their blue, and we'll see some chaps in greens and so forth. So some are approximations, and some have just been pressed into service because that's what I have available. And we'll also see for example, on probably the most obvious case is the artillery. I am a wargamer who likes to spend his time playing games. I am not a wargamer who likes to spend a lot of time painting. Almost all the figures I have in my collection in all my different periods and scales have been purchased from other people. These days, of course, it tends to be eBay. In the olden days, it would be from the bring and buy section at a Wargame show, that sort of thing. So I can't take any credit for for the vast majority of the paint jobs, and nor can I actually take criticism because it's just I bought what was available. If they looked attractive, I bought them, and so therefore I make no claims to the accuracy of the color schemes or the uniforms, this sort of thing. But again, by and large, things are fairly accurate. Now, having got rid of all the legally binding disclaimers, we will move on to having a bit of fun with the battlefield itself. Now, I am playing this in exactly the same room, from exactly the same chair, essentially, that I fought the Volley and Bayonet 6mm Quatre just a couple of months ago. But this time I'm using my new Wargame table, and of course the battlefield is much larger because we're using a different scale of figure, and indeed a different ground scale for the Wargame itself. I had played it before using the centimeter scale, which means in Volley and Bayonet that whereas a brigade base, so let's see, we'll start doing some pointing now. Whereas a brigade base, so here's, let's say, here's a French brigade here. In the Volley and Bayonet rules, a brigade base is 3 inches on each side. Now, these bases are, I'm using my 20mm figures, and what I've done is, in order to compress it slightly so I can still get fairly large battles on a table that is not enormous, it's my table now in this room is actually 6.5 feet by 4 feet. So, and that's the biggest I can get in here. So what I've done is, instead of using brigade bases that would be 3 inches by 3 inches, these brigade bases are 4/5 of that. They're 80% of that. So they are, in fact, we go metric here. So they are, in fact, 60mm by 60mm. The reason I chose that, one of the compelling reasons I chose that, is because almost all my figures were based on bases that were 60mm wide, because they were based for the Wargame research group 1685 to 1845 rules, which had elements that were 60mm wide. And what I've done is I've taken 3 of those elements and stuck them with double-sided tape down onto sabot bases, and of course I'll say sabot, I'll probably say sabot mainly, of course I'm sure it's a French word which would be sabot. Let's see, and if we take a look, and underneath here, so there we go, it's just a simple MDF base that I ordered, 60mm square bases. And so they are double-sided taped down onto those. And then we have the artillery, which is slightly variant away from the strict Volley and Bayonet specification, because I have my artillery based up this way. In Volley and Bayonet, the artillery battery or battalion should be half the width of a brigade. Mine are actually... what are they? They're 2/3 the width of a brigade, but hey, it's my war game. I'm not going to tell anyone. And the other thing is I don't wander around the country doing competition games, so it's just me playing myself or playing a guest at my home. So there we go, I'm okay with that. And then moving on to the cavalry, which would normally be in Volley and Bayonet, a brigade base that would be the same size as an infantry base. So using the scheme I've cooked up here, it would be 60mm by 60mm. The important thing, of course, is the frontage. So they've still got a 60mm frontage. But I didn't want to just have one rank of cavalry. I wanted to have 2 ranks of cavalry. I've got a fair amount of them. So what I've done is I've stuck 2 ranks of cavalry together, which really gives them, as we can see if we look at this brigade here, for example, we can see it's not really square, but as I figure it, the main important thing is the frontage, and it is a little bit long in the tooth going this way. Okay, so again, getting all the difficult stuff out of the way at first, and the reason I'm doing that is also to help people who are not familiar with Volley and Bayonet. If they start looking at the troops that I've got in front of me here and wondering, well, wait a minute, why is that an odd shape and what's going on there? Right, so now I'll just take a brief pause. Okay, and we're back. So to continue, let's get a nice pointing stick, if I can grab one over here, and let's take a look at the battlefield of Quatre. What I've done is I've used the full-size Quatre map from the Volley and Bayonet Road to Glory book. I mention that it's important because Quatre is also in the Napoleon Returns book, and this is the one from the Road to Glory book, which is a different battlefield map, and excuse me, and also has an option for a smaller battlefield. I've used the full-size battlefield, and what we're looking at here, the scene that we see before us right now, is actually the position of the forces at the initial deployment at the beginning of the battle. So it's the beginning of the 2 p.m. turn. Now, also, I will mention that having played this in the 6mm scale, which I was saying was the centimeter scale, where the bases, instead of being 3 inches on a side in the centimeter scale, were 3 centimeters on a side, so very much smaller, half the size of this. I played the battle, and it was a very exciting battle, but it did seem to me that it would have been very difficult for the French to win. So one of the variants that is listed in the book that one might try is basically that the Comte d'Erlon actually arrives in a more timely manner, and his corps gets well stuck into the battle. So that's the variant that we will be playing today. So things will start out as usual, and then on, I believe it is the fifth turn, he has 4 divisions, and each division will begin arriving 1 per hour beginning on the 5th turn. Okay. Then as far as the battlefield itself goes, if I sort of pull back a little bit here, as far as the battlefield itself goes, let's just do a quick try to do a bit of do my best for trying to pronounce some of the names here. Of course, we're in Belgium, so we'll do the best we can. Here we can see the Dutch-Belgian forces, or the Netherlands and Nassau, I think it is, forces are here. We see de Peyrepencher there, and we see the Prince of Orange here. And then over here, we have got Ney's forces that have appeared. We've got the Corps of Real, and let's see, we've got Piré and his cavalry here. We've got Foy here, and Bachelou over there. And there's Ney, and there's Rael, and there's his artillery, this corps artillery. This is the cavalry's artillery. And then as far as our features are concerned, over here is where we have, over there is where we have Quatre, and then here we have Piedmont, we have Gémiancourt, we have Piromont, and over there we have, that's the tough one, what is it, Saddam Avaline. Okay, we've got some big woods. We've got the Bois de Bossu. We've got the Bois des Houttes, and we also have the Bois des Sons over here. Okay. Oh, and then we have the lake here, or the pond, pretty big pond if you ask me, but anyway, which is the Étang du Materne. Okay. Then we got the roads, and the roads are going to up here. Got that road is going up to Bruxelles. We got this road going up here to Nivelles. We got this road coming down here going to Charleroi. And then we have this road over here. Where's my stick? There it is. This road over here, which is going off to Namur. We have, let's see, we've done the woods. And of course, this, as we might imagine, is a hill. Then we have as far as the water features are concerned, they're all streams with marshy banks, which can be crossed, but if you do cross them, artillery can't cross them, and if anyone else crosses them, they will lose their dedicated guns, which you don't really want to do if you can avoid it, and of course it will cause slowing down and disorder and all that sort of thing. So when possible, let's use a bridge. So we've got a bridge here, and we've also got a bridge over here. We have this feature here, which is the brown indicator on both sides of the road down there is indicating that section of road counts as a sunken road, and so troops that are in it treat the sunken road as field works, or light works, or hasty works, or something of that general description. We'll attend to that when we come to it. Now, as far as the way the troops are deployed, well, let's see. This, as I say, this is all one division, and two of these brigades have detached a unit of skirmishers to defend the nearby villages. So the village of Pierrepont is being defended here, and then also the village of Gémioncourt is being defended in addition. This is important because in Volley and Bayonet, all these locations that all the inhabited locations that we see on the battlefield are villages, which means that in Volley and Bayonet, other troops can sweep through the village, walk right through it, doesn't slow them down, no problem whatsoever, unless it is defended. Even if it's defended by skirmishers, it has to be treated differently. It has to be taken on and treated as an obstacle. If you can then get rid of the skirmishers, then you can carry on sweeping through it. But they do form a blockage whilst they're there. And in terms of terrain, I think that's about it for terrain. And then in terms of what's going on the first turn, as I say, we've deployed here. The Anglo-Allies deployed first. They were allowed to deploy as far forward as these three villages here, 1, 2, 3. They had to be within 2,400 paces of Quatre down there. So they're all set. So they've basically put themselves to block the road, as well you might imagine, and thrown out some skirmishers to cause the villages to be obstacles to the French progress. And they are all sitting now waiting for the French. One thing I haven't done is, I've forgotten to do, but I'll do it before we start the battle, is they're all stationary. So they would all have a stationary marker in front of them, which in Volley and Bayonet terms means they're ideally situated to defend themselves. Okay, they're in good formation to defend themselves. The French are coming up the road. They're very mobile. Which is to say they're moving forward up the road and near the road. They're not in road column. They're deployed for battle, and we can see that the artillery is turned backwards, which is used to indicate that it's limbered at the moment. So it's actually moving forward, but it's limbered. This one's on the road, clearly. Then we have the cavalry here, okay, going past the hill, for example. And then we can see each one of these represents either a division commander or a corps commander, or in this case, an army commander with Michel Ney. And then, let's see. Okay, one moment. And there we have, finally, the troops suitably marked with their stationary markers, which I always just use a bit of a log, really, bit of twig to indicate which units are stationary. So I think that's enough with our preliminaries, and we will go forth into battle. The French move first, and they also have, of course, coming on in the first turn as reinforcements, we have Prince Jérôme down here, and he's going to be bringing these 4 brigades into action. And, well, as far as the first turn goes, we shall see. And here we are at the end of the French first turn, which is the 2 p.m. turn. So we haven't had the Anglo-Allied turn yet for 2 p.m. So the French have moved and conducted morale tests, and there has been inconclusive combat, all of which was shooting at no melee. Right, in terms of movement, well, as we can see, basically Réal's men have just moved forward. We've got 4 brigades here that have moved forward. These 3 are facing off against the Netherlands troops here. They've even moved their artillery forward and deployed it there. This is heavy artillery. One system I have gone with is putting 3 men on for heavy and 2 men on for horse artillery. So that's deployed there. All these troops, of course, have had an additional advantage in that they were stationary. Okay. So they moved up there. This brigade is heading towards Piedmont, is going to try to dislodge the Nassauer detachment of skirmishers that's in the village there. And then we have the cavalry has come around here. The cavalry are not in a position to charge the village, as it were. So these chaps are going to attempt to clear out the skirmishers. Shouldn't have too much difficulty doing that. Famous last words. And then hopefully that will give the cavalry a means to sweep through the village and press on the attack. In other areas, we had, let's see, Prince Jérôme here led his men forward, his 4 brigades, and they are in march column. And in march column in Volley and Bayonet, you've got 3 empty bases essentially behind you, representing long drawn out column of men, obviously. In march column, they can move twice as fast as they could normally when they're traveling across country. And so we've managed to get up to here, strung out, and then this brigade, so as not to be left completely behind, is drawn a sort of parallel route up to here. Jérôme up there leading forward, and Ney is the army commander in this position here in case he needs to assist with command. Then after movement, we did have some morale tests were done on a few units down here because they were within the close range and firing arc of the enemy's weapons. Everybody passed their morale tests. And then we had the combat, which was just shooting. So we had shooting, the artillery units fired at one another. And we had the French were able to use their dedicated guns. So there was some dedicated gunfire, and there were no results at all. Desultory fire, as I like to say. So we haven't really got stuck into it yet. In terms of ranges, the French have deliberately stopped short of the Anglo-Allies, as we can see. You might be wondering, well, why didn't they attack them straight away? They certainly, they were within reach. But in this scenario, it's a special rule because of the large areas of the battlefield being covered in very unusually tall standing crops. The requirement is that in order to charge another unit, the unit must start within 400 yards of it. So the French couldn't charge the enemy straight off. They had to get to a point where they were within 400 yards, and then they can charge them next turn. What they have done is they have put themselves within 400 yards, but they've held back so that they're not within musket range, which is 200 yards. So therefore they're able to stop and not be fired at with the enemy's muskets, and then they will be able to charge the next turn. Of course, if the Anglo-Allies felt particularly gutsy, they could charge the French in their turn if they wanted to. Seems unlikely somehow. And so that, I think that pretty much summarizes where we are at the end of the French first turn. So we can think of it as being sometime after 2 o'clock. Let's just call it 2:30 in round numbers. And it is the Anglo-Allied turn next. And on we go. On a side note here, I did realize, not terribly organized of me, but I didn't mention what the victory conditions were for this scenario. And I think the best thing to do is to just read it from the book itself. If any player holds his opponent's line of communication at the end of the game, that player wins. The British line of communication is the road to Brussels. The French line of communication is the road to Charleroi. Failing that, the player with the fewest exhausted divisions wins. Each French cavalry division exhausted only counts as a half division for victory purposes. There are no draws. The Anglo-Allied player wins all ties, so the burden of attack is on the French player. Okay, there we go. Those are the victory conditions. And just to flesh that out a little bit, so up there, as we've said before, this is the road to Brussels. So the French are trying to basically capture that point there where the road leaves the table. And then the Anglo-Allies, if they wanted to capture the French line of communication, that would be down here, which is this road here to Charleroi. Okay, there we have it. And here we are at the end of the Anglo-Allied first turn, which is to say the 2 o'clock turn. So we've now completed the first turn for both sides, and we have actually had a result. The Anglo-Allies decided to sit in position, getting all the benefits of being stationary and blocking, of course, the Brussels road. So there was an exchange of fire. We're too far away for musket range, as explained earlier, but artillery was certainly able to fire back and forth. We have had, just one second. Yeah, I was going just a little bit ahead of myself there. All the Allied units were in command. There was no problem there. They performed no movement. There were morale tests because the same reason as last time, because of troops that were within the close range fire of the enemy. Everybody passed their morale tests, and then there was firing, and basically what happened was, if you recall, there was an Anglo-Allied horse battery here, not surprisingly, wasn't able to do any damage to the enemy, but this French heavy battery here, which is not stationary, but it is heavy, so it means that at close range, which it is, it hits on a 4, 5, or a 6, so 50% chance of scoring a hit there. And although artillery targets get saving throws, in some circumstances they don't get it from heavy units, so this unit hit the artillery battery, no saving throws. The battery, or rather a battery, only has one strength point, so it was destroyed, so it is simply gone. So that's the first loss of the battle. There were no other casualties, and we now proceed on to the French second turn, which is 3 p.m.